Assalamu alaikum everyone. So good to see everyone around. This is the first episode of Socio. It's a time of celebration. It's Pakistan's Independence Month. All around we can see flags fluttering. All around we can see people celebrating. There are million nagmas going around, and we see that people have a celebratory air around. Although pretty much there's a lot of downsides to it as well. A lot of things are going in the wrong direction in terms of the country's economic direction, and a lot of things are happening which are not to be taken lightly in the political and socio-economic landscape of the country. But at the same time, it's a time of celebration. In this episode and in the subsequent ones, at least in the next 3 or 4 ones, we will be analyzing Pakistan's independence from a sociological perspective, and we will be looking at what does it mean to be an independent country in today's world. What does it mean to have independence politically, economically, intellectually in today's world? We'll first be tracing Pakistan's independence historically from a historical point of view, in a historical context. We'll be talking about important developments in that time period with regards to resistance to colonialism, and then we will be talking about the remnants of imperialism that are still here even after colonialism has departed. So let's try in this episode to place the historical framework of Pakistan's independence movement at that time. Of course, as we know, Pakistan, India and Bangladesh were at that point in time one united landmass, and they were under the British Raj at that particular point in time. And this was Pakistan and India gaining independence at that point in time was a culmination of a real long historical struggle. This was a struggle against colonialism. This was a struggle against Western European powers colonizing vast swaths of Asia, Africa, and the Middle East after the Industrial Revolution had happened, and they had gone about colonizing vast swaths of land masses of Middle East, Asia, and Africa. The anti-colonial movement in the Indian subcontinent was spearheaded by very important intellectuals and luminaries such as Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Mahatma Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru. All of these were very important intellectuals and luminaries in their own right, who spearheaded the cause of the Indian people against the British Raj. And they were not only successful in uniting and galvanizing the people of the subcontinent, not only were they successful in uniting these people in putting up a united front against the British Raj, but they were also successful in putting up a very strong case in the international academia and in the international scholarly circles, as well as the international print media at that time, of the need for these countries' native populations to gain independence. Of course, as we know, the Indian National Congress had been created in 1885, and we also know that the Muslim League had been created in 1906. Both of these organizations were very influential in the run-up to the independence movement, and both of these organizations won a significant portion of seats in the 1946 elections, which really gave the mandate to the Muslim League and the Congress to basically demand for the British to leave the country and for the native people to gain independence at that point in time. At the same time, we have to remember that colonialism and the whole colonization project had become really expensive for the British people. And not only for the British Empire, but also for the German Empire and also for the French Empire at that point in time. Because the Second World War had ended, and it had basically devastated the landmass of Europe, and it had basically led to a lot of casualties, not only military casualties, but also civilian casualties for the 3 great European powers. And colonialism was no longer a sustainable European project, you can say. So therefore, colonialism was no longer an economic it was no longer an economically sustainable project. It was no longer politically meaningful. It was no longer politically sustainable, and therefore we see that not only was the resistance of the natives important in ending the colonialist project, but also the people back home in these countries, they were also demanding an end of an empire, and they were also demanding for these agents of the empire to return back home and end colonialism at that particular point in time. So this is a brief historical run-up to what the independence movement was for the natives at that particular point in time, the natives of the subcontinent at that particular point in time. We will now, in the next episode, we will be talking about the aftermath of the independence movement in the regions of Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, and we'll be talking about the fact that although colonialism might have departed, but the remnants of imperialism still remain, and we will be bringing in some key sociologists and some key thinkers and philosophers in that regard who still argue. We'll be talking about Wallerstein, for instance, who came up with his world system theory, and he says that there are essentially core countries in this world, and then there are peripheral countries in this world, and the core countries run the world system, while the peripheral countries are at the periphery of the socio-economic political order. We'll be talking about all of those interesting stuff in the next episode. Stay tuned. I hope you found this intellectually stimulating, and hope to see you next time. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Take care. Allah Hafiz.